Welcome to the latest episode of the National Leaderology Association podcast. I am your host, Dr. Amin Sanaia. Today is a special episode. We're going to be speaking on storytelling with one of my favorite people. The title of this podcast is The Enlightened Leader. So I've met this gentleman, and his story is amazing. I'm joined by a good friend, Tom Dutta, like butter, also known as the Quiet Warrior. Tom is an accomplished CEO and the founder of C.R.A.V.E, a notable presence in global education. His impactful journey includes delivering a TEDx talk titled How Leaders Can Lift the Stigma of Mental Health, and a decade-long commitment to mental health advocacy, drawing from his own lived experiences. As a number one international best-selling author for his book, The Way of the Quiet Warrior, 90 Days to the Life You Desire. Tom has penned a total of 11 books. His storytelling prowess shines through as the host and executive producer of the Quiet Warrior podcast and live stream. Here, individuals share their tales of resilience in the face of adversity. Following a brain injury, Tom immersed himself in the world of neuroscience and became founding fellow of ION, the International Organization of Neuroscience. As a board certified master neuroplastician, he educates people on rewriting neural pathways through neuroplasticity. Currently, Tom is embarking on a new chapter, which we'll talk about in a little bit, in his life by pursuing a doctoral degree at Middlesex University in London. Welcome, my friend.
Thanks, Amin. Dr. Amin, it's great to be on your show, the NLA, the NLA. I love that. I've been learning a lot about what they do and listening to some of the other podcasts. So thanks for having me here.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. Um, so here in our podcast, we like to have a little bit of fun. So there's nothing out of bounds. So I'll introduce topics. I know for you, storytelling is something that it's very near and dear to your heart. So I want to start there and discuss a little bit about the ancient tradition of storytelling and its impact on learning and memory.
Yeah, I love storytelling. I got to tell you that yesterday I was listening to an audio of Star Wars, the music Star Wars,
Yes.
and I was preparing for that. I mean, I forgot that George Lucas, you can Google and find this to your listeners. Lucas talks about the something called the hero's journey. Joseph Campbell did a body of work on that. He was really studied mythology and religion, and he left a library or university made of work. And I didn't realize until I understood that Star Wars, George Lucas created Star Wars with the narrative of storytelling.
Oh,
And
wow.
as a C-level leader like yourself, when I began in my career, my first management role was age 25. I'd like stand in a room, right? This young cocky guy, and I wore big suits then. My suits were baggy; they were 3 times as big as I was, and I'm Canadian, but from Fiji. So somebody said you look like an Ethiopian chicken. That's how skinny my legs are, and I had these suits that would gobble me up. And I'm standing in the room there, and I'm just having a meeting. So, okay, well, today we're talking about our loans origination system, and the new plan is out for the Loan Arranger campaign, and we have goals of we need to get our loans up by 100%, blah, blah, blah. And everybody was sinking in their chair like the Titanic, and they're just literally, and I couldn't see that, I couldn't read it.
Mhm.
But you noticed when I started off talking about George Lucas, and then I told you that I told you the last situation about the suit, and
Mhm.
could you put yourself into that story when I was telling it? Could you visually see me in the big baggy suit? Could you visually see? and feel like you were a part of that?
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. I mean, visual is for me. It's very important. But as we have our conversations, and obviously this is not our first conversation, I love it because you do it every single time, and you are so good with it because you make me like really live in that moment.
Thank you.
When you're doing that. Side note, when you were saying baggy suits, I was going to ask you, were they like MC Hammer pants?
Yeah. Well, I'm embarrassed to tell you because that was when I was 21 years old when I became a loan manager at a local bank. One was crimson, one was green. I had these weird colors, and yeah, they were everything probably that Hammer would like, right? Everything but the hammer. I probably should have got that, put a chain on it, and hung it. Uh, but let me just say, because I love the topic of storytelling, that here's the magic, everybody. That leaders, business leaders. When I say leaders, my definition of a leader, I mean, is a leader. Number one role, and it's very broad, is to create other leaders. And I want to offer a
Absolutely.
little resource to your audience that they can go watch on YouTube. But I'll just come back to that. It's remind me if I don't say it. It's a video I'd like to share with you.
Yeah.
But the storytelling narrative, what happens is that there may be Star Wars fans out there, maybe not. So, did you see Star Wars?
Yes.
Oh, good. Because if you didn't, I'd be going like, wait a minute, you were just saying, yeah, I love that, and now you like, I never saw it. But so what happens in the narrative storytelling? And Lucas knew this, and by the way, Alfred Hitchcock, The Birds, movies like that,
Wow, that's
that I
about
had, I hear people say they watched that and they have nightmares still today. Why
Mhm.
is it I can remember back to that moment in time, standing in the office as a loans officer? Why is it I can recite that back to you? And I didn't prepare for this. Why is it I can tell you that in the opening movie of Star Wars, I remember the scene of Luke Skywalker in the middle of the desert, and over on the right, the big moon was glowing and the sun was coming up, and over on the left, his light speeder was hovering over the ground, and there was this horrible fire. And as he walked closer to it, you could see tears coming in his eyes, and it was the burning bodies of his grandparents. And in that moment, he realized all of a sudden he had this thing inside him. He wanted to go seek and find the truth about who did that. And that led him on a pathway to discover this force, the dark side or the light side of the force. Now, why am I telling you all this? Because I know your audience is saying, just get on with it. We don't care about Star Wars. The truth is, what's happening when I'm telling you that, and Lucas knew it, and I know it from leadership, is if in a story comes a protagonist. Every story has the same narrative. There's a protagonist. And it can be myself telling you my own story if I'm a business leader. Like I can stand up and talk about my own story, my life, the company, or I can use somebody else's story. So in this case, I'm telling you the story of Skywalker. I told you the story of Tom Dutta, like Butter, the loan officer, the loan arranger.
Mhm.
All right. Then comes what's called the antagonist. Right. So in Luke's story, it was whoever killed his parents, there was this evil dark force. And in the story of the lone one, if I went further, this particular branch that they put me into, I mean, was not doing well, and it was actually its book of business was shrinking on the lending side. And so there's an antagonist story. There's something we don't like. Like anybody who runs the bank branch and they're paid to build, do not want to step into a branch that's losing its volume of business.
Yes.
And it doesn't make sense. So now we have, okay, the protagonist, we have the antagonist in the story, and we have something that the word enmity, where mutually the audience and the storyteller, like we all agree we don't like that. So if I was to ask, do you like the image of seeing your grandparents' bodies burning? And I don't want to impose that on your mind that it's about your parents.
Yep.
We all agree nobody would like that.
Absolutely not.
Okay, so right in that moment, what's happening is that as I'm starting to tell you the story in the brain, because we want to talk about neuroscience here, in the brain, what's happening is you're releasing a stress hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is not a bad thing if it's released for short periods of time.
Mhm.
If it's released all the time, then it becomes distress. And that was part of my childhood. Too much cortisol. I lived that way. So it's released. But what really happens when cortisol is released is all of a sudden Tom's you, the audience, is sitting on the edge of your chair and you're alert. Cortisol puts you in a state of alertness.
Yes.
So if a business leader is telling a story, the people listening to them are on a state of alertness. What's going to happen here? Oh, is there danger? I want to hear what happens next, right? So that's not a bad thing. Then along comes the antagonist, so something bad. And in that case, the lone story would have been, we're falling apart here, we got to grow. And then everybody's feeling the stress, right? In the case of Star Wars, we told you about that. So now what happens is that the cortisol is building and we need a release. So then there's hope. Well, Luke, he got on his light speeder and he decided he's going to go looking for who did this and the force that's within him, the good. So he's going to go out for the band of warriors of the galaxy to save the world. Now, in that moment when we're watching that movie, we're going, yes, I didn't like the burning people. I didn't like that. I felt bad for him, but he's going to go out now on a journey and I want to follow him. I want to know what happens next. I
Absolutely.
want to know who did that. Yes, Tom, our branch is falling apart and our loan portfolio is falling apart and our bonuses are based on that. We're glad you're here now as our leader, but yes, we're willing to, what do we do? We're willing to follow you. And then what happens is in that last part of the story, you have what's called oxytocin, which is released in the brain. Now, oxytocin is released when I'm the storyteller, you're listening, where we both go, we're looking at going like, you know what, that Tom guy, he's just like me. Or there's something about him I relate to, his story, something in his story. So back in the Luke one, everybody can relate to it. Oh my goodness, I can relate. If that was my parents died and I felt horrible and this happened, something about that I connect to. I feel bad for him. I trust him. I kind of want to stay a while and be with him. In business, it's the same. When I said to you the loan story and I'm saying, listen, guys, I know that the branch here is falling down, but you know what? I'm excited because we can all get together and put this plan together. I don't know what it is, but we can put it together. So let's just wrap it up and how it went. Now you can hack in the first 2, 3, 4 minutes of an interaction with anybody in business or your personal life just by telling a little story. And if you learn the skill of putting that story together and using it as a leadership skill, it's dramatic because people don't know. But what I've really just done is I've hacked your brain to get you to release these chemicals. Now you're going to follow me, as opposed to standing up and saying, you're all a bunch of losers. You haven't been doing your job. We don't have enough loans. I don't know if we're going to be able to, our FTE is too high. We might have to reduce one of you if we don't get there. It's like, okay. So you get the picture.
Yeah.
So thank you. The artist's ancient storytelling, it goes back a long ways. And it's a key. It's like a tapestry. And it can change, leadership can change people's minds and do incredible things with it.
Absolutely. And the reason why I wanted us to have this conversation on storytelling and obviously we want to tap into, just the ancient tradition of it, to show people that this is nothing new. This is something that's been happening and it's been used throughout our history. But storytelling is so powerful for a leader. And for all the reasons and the example that you just put us through, that the leaders can use that as probably the most powerful tool in their toolbox, because you get to get the audience's attention, your people, the people, because as a leader, if you can't connect with people, having that human connection, you're not leading anyone. You're just saying words and doing whatever you want.
Yeah.
But the power of the storytelling can be just like you did with me at the beginning, so visual, and people start correlating what you're saying to a vision of where we can be, and now they're picturing that like, okay, I get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get it. I'm following you. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing, the power about the brain is, and what you said resonates with me, is the power of that is what it's really about. Our brains have released neuromodulators or neurotransmitters. These are chemicals. And why does an employee feel good at work? Or why does an employee like his boss or her boss?
Mhm.
these chemicals are released and they actually create that feeling in us. So hacking the brain, learning to use it in leadership skills. I just got to go on a tangent here. The Boeing story of the Max 737 planes, and
Yes.
I don't want to get off on a political or anything tangent on that, but I just saw a clip of the CEO of Boeing come out, and I guess in America, I'm in Canada, but he was asked to go to Congress and talk about this. Your planes are having problems. What's going on? You're the guys in charge of it.
Hmm.
He went on mic and he said he did completely the opposite of what we're talking about here. We make good planes. Blah
Yeah.
blah blah. The very first thing that started happening when I listened to his and as a leader, this is something important to your audience. As leaders, whether we're supervisors, managers, we only get short periods of time. It's a gift. We have the megaphone when
Yep.
we're in conversations, but sometimes in a day you might have 1 minute, and it's very easy to lose the fact that building rapport and connection, that every minute matters. So he had the opportunity to say, we're horrified this has happened. We're going to get down the bottom of it. We empathize, and I'm so sorry.
Yep.
And I'm the CEO, and you know what? I take full responsibility, but I don't have all the answers. But I promise you that further updates will have that. And there's hope because we've built amazing aircraft here in Boeing for decades,
Hmm.
and we will get back to that standard again. I promise you. Did you feel? Just tell me. Did you feel, from a point of view of cortisol, which is stress, and then there's hope, oxytocin, trust? Did you, if I was a CEO, did you feel any of that listening to me in that last moment?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And you're absolutely correct. I mean, that CEO, when he got up there, it's like you lost everyone within the first five, 6 words. I mean, it was like, okay.
So, so thank you. But the first scenario of that, though, was completely opposite. And this is why I like the topic of storytelling you've put out
Hmm.
here. That it is ancient, but it's been there a long time. The last point on that just came to mind. I mean, it's remember way back when. Well, actually, it's funny I say remember way back when. Of course you wouldn't. But if you grew up in the depression, like my wife's parents, there was no electricity, there was no
Hmm.
cars. You walked everywhere, right? And
Yes.
how did people help people get from where they were to the pharmacy? Told stories.
Absolutely.
Hey, we're here now, but you walk down that way and walk down that street, and you're going to see this
Hmm.
big tree. And by the way, last year we had a bear that came in there, and now we're telling stories, right? And you turn right here and
Hmm.
follow the trail of the bear's poop, or whatever you want to say. But yeah, stories. We've forgotten about it.
Without a doubt. And when you were telling the story of that CEO, during December, towards the end of December, I was actually looking at the news.
Yeah,
I don't watch news, but I was reading on about Nokia and the the actual. I saw they got bought out by Microsoft, and they're no longer going to be in existence. But they had a clip of the CEO speaking, and most of the executives were right behind him, and this guy gets up there, just about crying how the company is done. They're getting it's mostly like a hostile takeover.
yeah,
Microsoft just bought them out, and then they're out of business. And it was excuses after excuses after excuses.
yeah,
And you're like, this guy, what are you doing, man? Like, no wonder you're getting taken over. I mean, this is a primary example of that. Again, as a leader, we have the ability to relay our message with our people by using stories in order to get their buy-in on understanding of what the ultimate goal is. And when you see leaders do it the wrong way, you're like, okay, this is not good at all.
yeah. I understand, and I that Nokia story. I haven't seen that, but when I put myself in the shoes of whoever was listening to that, that's atrocious. The the one of the things that came to mind was the word humanizing. And you can humanize, a leader can humanize themselves just again by telling stories. You want to know something that's really remarkable? When I started using storytelling, I mean, this goes back
Mm-hmm.
years. How do you develop a culture of storytelling leadership? You tell a story,
Yeah.
and you infect other people. So remember, I said the leader's number one role, in my view, is to create other leaders. That if I stand up and all of a sudden Tom walks in the room and people around me, say I'm new in a company as a leader and say, "Wow, we've never seen this before." The guy just kind of just told us a weird story,
Yeah.
but it starts taking a life. And I'm not saying that people get off on a tangent and
Mm-hmm.
tell stories all day long. No, the vernacular, the way you can tell stories, is really by making it can become a habit and part of your way of life, part of your way of life of leading. What it does actually, the facts and figures actually get the brain on the analytical side, and the brain gets stuck, and the stories humanize, so they create that emotional connection, as you said. That video to note was called "Dancing Guy on a Hill," the
Okay.
one that I want to offer your audience, and it's actually
Mm-hmm.
a TED talk was done on it. So can I just tell you about that very quickly, how it
Absolutely.
relates?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, as I just said, how do you infect people to be able to develop a culture where they're communicating with heart, empathy, turning their, you can lead and you can bring in a concept that we have to reorganize this department, but you could turn it into something that has a storyline. You can use your story and examples of, when I was in one of the companies I came from, I was an employee in it, and they decided to outsource the call center, and they started making it more efficient, and that process scared me. I didn't sleep for nights. But here's what we did. And here's how the team together. And by the way, that later we realized we were so much more efficient. We actually were able to create and hire more people, and empower more people, give them things that could stretch them in their skills. So Dancing Guy in a Hill, it's a very short video. It's about this one guy, and it's at some kind of a music creative festival, and it's a sunny day on the side of this hill. And there must have been on the video, if you watch it, over 100 people. Okay, and they're all in shorts, t-shirts. They're young
Mm-hmm.
people, right? Youth. And this one guy gets up. Maybe it was like the hippie generation a little bit, and he just gets up, goes in the middle of this open space, and everybody's around it, right on the side of the mountain, partying. There's maybe a few beers in there, and he just starts doing flailing and doing these weird things, and there's this music going on in the background. It's almost like this drum beat music that somebody had on their boombox. He does that, and then very very soon, another guy gets up and goes out there, and he didn't call him, didn't know him, and stands beside him and starts flailing and doing the same thing. And as the video progressed, the outcome you probably guess is that by the time it was over, the entire 100 people, all these young people, they're up and they're flailing away, and they're acting almost like the same. So here's the beauty of leadership. If I'm a leader and you and I work together, I'm your boss, and I we have to make big change. I don't go out there and start saying, "Hey, get up here and I want you to dance this way, man." What I do is I try to create another leader, create you. So I look for somebody that I can trust. I look for somebody within the group that maybe I know is on the same page of what I'm trying to do, and then I bring, and then I start demonstrating this behavior, and I know that Dr. Amin is going to come along, and he's going to embrace it. I just know him. I know this. I've chosen him as my almost like my disciple, because I know he's like-minded. He's positivity. He's respected by people on the team. I see him at the water cooler. Everybody talks to this guy. He's my first follower. So I'm going to infect him, and then I'm going to be able to sit back and be a leader, which is not doing, but leading through Dr. Amin. And then now
Absolutely.
you go out and you infect others. So the power of that can apply to storytelling. If I teach my first follower by telling stories when I'm communicating with them, the art of using some simple skills, you watch what will happen. They're going to go out and they're going to start learning to communicate that way.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, to your point, stories, effectively make a lot of our leadership concepts, whether they're complex or not, it makes them accessible and relatable. And it's through weaving into narratives filled with emotions, experiences, and characters. And you do that very well. So that allows for the audience, which is the future leaders that you're trying to create, really go on that journey with you. And if you can do that as a leader, you win.
But have you ever stepped on a Siberian cockroach?
Oh boy.
I mean, have you ever stepped on a Siberian cockroach? I
Yeah.
mean, seriously.
Yeah.
All right. So I just did something with you. I'm playing with you, but thank you for saying that to me, Doctor. I mean, because
Hmm.
you're a great host. You're drawing so many things out of me. I said that for a reason. I was at a. I'm going to bring this in as an example of what you and I are talking about. But
Hmm.
being able to also shift people in tough situations with story. Tony
Yes.
Robbins, Anthony Robbins is one of the best storytellers and teachers out there, and I've gone to his immersion pro. He was working live with somebody in one of the programs I was in, and this guy was stressed. He was depressed. I think he was suicidal. And Tony stopped him and he said, "Have you ever stepped on a Siberian cockroach?" And that what I did was that weird. So what the brain does is when the brain's a prediction machine, so it predicts. Okay, Amin's talking about this. He's going to talk about this, right? He's going to
Hmm.
talk about this next. This is going to happen. That's what the
Yeah.
brain has to do is predict what's going to happen next. It's trying to figure out your reality. When the brain actually, it's called a benign failure of prediction. All of a sudden, I said cockroach, and your brain's going like, what? That's called a benign failure of prediction. And when it's benign, meaning it's not hurtful or anything, the brain actually hiccups and laughs.
Yep.
So just again, using your technique, if you're telling a little story as a leader about something difficult that we're doing, ever something that's getting heavy, you can just say, by the way, does anybody out there think I look like a Siberian cockroach right now? And you just pause.
Yeah.
You're gonna get
Everybody's
see
like,
the little chuckle, but what you've done is you've actually stopped the brain from thinking. And cortisol, the cortisol levels are going down, and people are laughing. They're having this little chuckle. So that's sort of like when you're delivering difficult messages or when you're leading teams, you can learn these simple hacks in storytelling. When I've seen cases of business people bringing in tough things into meetings, particularly those who have no self awareness, and they're talking, and people are getting really, really stressed, and they don't know how to stop that. Again, going back to the beautiful narrative of storytelling you brought to your show, I just say, have you ever stepped on a Siberian cockroach? I can stop you in your tracks. I can stop my team in their tracks and go, what is he talking about? And if I just wanted to get you guys, if you're like me, I'm feeling a lot of stress right now because we're going to have to be making all this change. Anybody feeling like that? And then you just listen. Tell me a story of when you were in a meeting like this and you've started feeling stress. You're gonna get your first follower because you've already developing the. I
yep.
guarantee you, somebody's gonna say, you know what, I was. Now everybody's gonna go, and the stories are gonna coming out about stressful situations related to change, and everybody but connects on that,
Hmm.
and then you don't let it go off forever, and then you go, but there's hope. All together, we're gonna work through this, and we're gonna go out and have a big party and dance on the side of a hill. Imagine that.
You're so entertaining, Tom.
Sorry, man. I
Oh,
told you you're gonna have to stop me.
no, this is awesome. So, Tom, let's get into a little bit of your story because it's a
Yeah.
it's an amazing story of resilience and comeback, and really you're able to deal with a lot of issues because of your accident. So I'll leave it up to you where you want to start and what you
Okay.
want to share.
Sure. Well, I think for the sake of your audience and the podcast duration, it's something that I can't do succinctly because there's just so much to it. I did my first TED Talk February 2020, just after I had a brain injury, and the MC asked for my bio, and I didn't know what he was going to say, and he literally introduced me as the Renaissance man because my background is so varied, and there's so many things. What was the title of the book you wrote yourself? C.R.A.V.E, I think.
Yes, C.R.A.V.E. Empower
If
your leadership, C.R.A.V.E.
Yeah, I see it up on your shelf there. Good, because now I see I just hacked you. That gives me the permission to say cheap plug about my book. My book, The Way of the Quiet Warrior: 90 Days to the Life You Desire. I wrote in 2017 before I had a brain injury, and it's written as a hybrid a fable, so the business book and also an autobiography of my experiences. And
Okay.
so if that tells the story. So going back, my life started as a young boy. I was born in the UK and I came here to Canada at age 6. But I grew up not in a happy home. It was a home rife with alcoholism and abuse. And my dad was an addicted alcoholic. I can say I love him now. Back then I hated him, but he
Hmm.
died in 2018. But I never really knew him. I was homeless at age 12. And there was something about me. I was always just looking for significance, right? Go after and chase success. So I did. I became a manager at age 21 in the banking industry, a chief executive officer at age 31. And I don't say that for ego. It's actually funny because until you get into that role, they don't tell you that CEO stands for crack emotionally often. That's a line from my TED talk. And I lived and breathed it. And so why was I doing this? I was climbing the corporate ladder to replace what I discovered through my development, to replace the lack of love and connection I didn't have from my father in my early years. And
Wow.
so I was going out basically, and I thought the more stuff I get, the more power. And I actually had this desire to have money. Like I'm in my early 20s, right? And I just wanted to have nice stuff.
Uh-huh.
And my parents are from Fiji, my grandparents from India. So back then, nice stuff would be, here's your orange, go out and roll it out in the desert because that's all we got. Got into management, got into leadership, and things are going well. About 10 years ago, after really holding all the roles I really could, I got bored and I created an education company, Dr. Mead, called C.R.A.V.E. And it's
Uh-huh.
a company where I teach leaders executive coaching, and I created workshops to teach a lot of things you and I are talking about today, particularly things like storytelling and leadership skill. Things were going great. And 2017, that book was written, and I was on the rise. Like most people, you work hard at it, you fail, you get, and creating your own business is not easy once you go out on your own. And I burned my boat, didn't go back to the as a paid employee. And so in 2018, my father passed away from an unexpected heart attack. He died on his own, and we buried him. And then I took a few months off out of my business. I purposely took a few months off. And a friend of mine who's an engineer of a local engineering firm, a large firm, partner in it, he told me a story one day over a beer about his daughter who died from leukemia at age 12, and she had it twice. It came back. And he said, "Do you want to ride in the Ride to Conquer Cancer?" I said, "What's that?" He said, 225 kilometers on your bicycle over 2 days, up and down
Wow.
hills in the sun and the rain. And I said, I'm in. I didn't own a bicycle. So I boarded from a buddy and I trained. And I did the first leg of the ride, 112 kilometers. And for those in America, it's like 125 miles on your bike in 2 days. Imagine that.
Uh-huh.
And there's this thing, by the way, you can buy from the bike store called butt butter. It literally is this stuff in a thing called, but it's like butter. And you put it on your butt. And so I can tell you that doing that experience of riding a 225 kilometers, if you want to talk about leadership being hard, get your butt on a saddle on a bike for 2 days, and you're gonna know what it's like. Leadership ain't hard. so uh, we arrived at base camp. The first 125 kilometers outstanding. I was just so thrilled. And on the ride, by the way, my brain's creating all this oxytocin and this dopamine, and I'm feeling just superhuman. And I go to have a shower, and I fall in the bathtub. I fell backwards literally in seconds, lost my balance. I fell back with the force of 47 G's, they call it. And I broke my fall with my head. So I hit the tub. I actually cowered and I rammed the tub like a battering ram. So I lacerated my head. But I didn't realize till later my head snapped back in the back of it here, where inside your brain, in that part is the vision center. That hit the lip of the tub and I cracked the tub, porcelain tub. Blacked out. My wife was in the motel room where where I showered, and she came in and found me there, and it changed my life. And so I slipped fast into depression. So mental health is very important in business and leadership, but also
Yes.
unless you've journeyed down that path, I had suicidal ideation. I had my first bouts with that anxiety, and for from that period, which was August 2018, I uh, worked 2 years night stocking at Costco, And I was awesome, man. I was doing the produce section. I was the best at stacking potatoes. They call me the potato guy. And then I did a year waiting tables. Now remember, I'm coming from a leadership CEO type pedigree into Costco with a broken brain. And I didn't know the extent of it, but my gait, I couldn't walk straight. I couldn't orate. I had latency of speech. The words wouldn't come out. And then they told me, Tom, you have double vision. And I knew I saw two of everything, but my vision was wrecked. And I also had photophobia, which we discovered 2 years ago, where I can't deal with light, so I have to wear tinted glasses and things. And by the way, quick story: Bono, the singer, he wears tinted glasses. So I'm like you, a researcher. When I heard I had photophobia, I'm going like, how do I fix it? How do I fix? I say I'm going to Google Bono. I Google Bono, and I find out he wears those glasses because for 20 years he's been dealing with glaucoma. And one of the
Wow.
side effects of glaucoma is photophobia, which is sensitivity to light. Anyway,
Mhm.
on a tangent, on a tangent. So there are so going into this, but through that period of it's 5 years now. I went to advanced neuroplasticity clinics. I did cognitive behavioral therapies and marriage therapies and all these things for my mental health, and I worked myself through it. And that's where I learned the power of not only storytelling, but the power of how the brain can rewire. And I know people don't understand sometimes that. I used to think was these all these wires hanging outside your head and you're just going in there, Nina, Nina. There's a little guy in there tying them up. Got one. Oh no, no, no. Now his left hand is going into his right ear. Let's break that one. Rewiring what is your brain's plastic. Okay, it's
Yes.
moldable. And you have plasticity from a young age, right? And so did you know that we all have it right up till senior years till we perish? That if you damage part of your brain's remarkable. You can teach it to use different neural pathways to do the same thing. So, for example, I couldn't walk straight. So, through some physical activity, laser focused, and then some deep rest, sleep, and all these things that you have to do, my brain, while I was sleeping, would take those activities and it would retrain my brain how to actually walk using different parts of my brain. So you can see today as I'm talking to you, hopefully I'm orating okay, but before I couldn't, I would get lost in my thoughts. And I also host a podcast like you, and I couldn't coach people. Guys talking to me, and I know I'm supposed to, as a coach, listen to them, and all of a sudden I'm just going like, "What did you just say?" And I'm supposed to then now evoke something in you.
Yes.
So I literally almost lost my entire life, and it's during that time too. I want to just also say that, you know what, one of the greatest storytellers was, if you believe in it, I'm not saying everybody has to, is Jesus Christ. The Bible, which I read every morning, are parables and stories. And they teach you
Yes.
things. You don't have to believe in Jesus, but if you want to read stories, and so let's just say Jesus was the CEO and his vice presidents were his disciples. He would communicate with them through stories, telling them
Absolutely.
stories, and they would go out into the land and do the same thing. So through that, I learned in neuroplasticity. I learned several things. I want to talk about one, which is mental health and improving well-being. So can we go down that path?
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
this is your show. We're going down any rabbit hole you want to.
Okay.
I have some questions, but I want to let you
Well,
introduce that topic.
and throw in the questions. Please stop me because as a storyteller, if there's no questions coming in, I miss them. So I want you to tell me. So you're the host there. First of all, so going through this, so the neuroplasticity it fixed my gait and my balance, and there's a whole story to that. I was 14 weeks in an intense program using some advanced medical devices. It's remarkable. So I can tell all of you that as leaders, if you don't believe you can change your habits of how you lead people, of how you speak, of how you think, I guarantee you 100% that you can. You can change and transform into being a different leader by approaching it from the insight of change your brain, change your mind, change your life. So what I mean by that is, let's just give an example. If you get up every morning, like most leaders do, and you've reached for your cell phone and you start looking at it, boom, what you're doing is teaching your brain to be unfocused. And most leaders can't focus. Most leaders are all over the place. They don't concentrate. They can't focus. Their brain, we're teaching our brain. So if you change this one habit using this understanding of neuroplasticity, that for the first hour of the day, I'm not looking at my phone.
Mhm.
For the first hour of the day, I'm doing 3 or 4 things. And I have a routine I use. I can share it if we have time or another time. By doing that within a month or so, sometimes it takes just more work, the brain actually will open up new pathways where it doesn't want to pick up the phone for the first hour and start looking at emails and start looking at stuff. By doing that, you change your state of mind and you become more aware, you become more focused. So now you go into the office and how you walk in, how you show up as a leader is completely different. You create more healthier relationships and you can lead in a very different way. So let's get into mental health.
Uh, be,
People ask me,
be, before you get into mental health, because that's going to be a rabbit hole we're going to go into.
okay,
Um, so with your experience, I mean your life experiences, you were a CEO prior to this life changing event. How are you that experience as a CEO? If you take what you learned through the adversity that you had to go through, how would you have changed that experience as a CEO with the new learnings?
so wow, that's so what I heard you say is I was a CEO. So just for context, the last paid CEO role I had was in the late 2000s, and I was running a financial insurance company. I was the board was in the United States, I ran the Canadian company, and uh, and I had just gotten married, had my daughter, and after that, then in 2014, that's when I created my education company, and so I
Mhm.
became founder and CEO. So I'm just giving you the context here, right?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, with the learning, man. All right, so first of all, I mean, I had this line in my TED talk. I can't remember exactly, but I think it said something like, and then it was, and then she was on the phone. She's on the phone over there, and so I was depicting a story of at Costco, this woman on the front line, a supervisor who's driving the crap out of people. Right? We need more Mastercards. We need more of this. We need more of that. And so I think I said the line of the TED talk was, uh, and she's on the phone. She's talking to, looks like it was her supervisor. And I could see that look in her face. It just dropped. And then, and then, and then I can just imagine the supervisor over caffeinated, undernourished, et cetera, et cetera. So I was describing this. And then in that moment, I said, I looked up at the sky in the theater. I was in a big theater of 1,000 people doing this TED talk. And I went, that was me. He was me.
Wow.
And so back then as a leader, okay, my bonus was so fat, my paycheck was so big, right? I had developed significance, okay, more stuff, want a nicer car than everybody else, want to get a house. Oh, we have the house, so let's go spend my bonus and renovate it. Let's spend waste more money. A quantity of life doesn't mean quantity of stuff doesn't give you quality of life. So number one, back old CEO Tom was about significance. It was
Mm-hmm.
about himself.
Mm-hmm.
It was about there was some arrogance. I had a 360 survey feedback done on my performance, and in my early 30s, they said you're winning awards, you're growing these companies. This is a true story, and it made me cry actually. In one moment, I had a coach who was coaching me, and she goes, if you want to be the man here, you got to change." She said, and some of the words coming up are arrogance,
Mm-hmm.
grandstanding. It's all about you. So the old CEO Tom was about significance, driving hard. My dad was a military commanding officer, so get it done. It's got to be up here. It's only about it's not about you, and I don't care about you. Mental health, what's that? And yet, I was winning awards, and every company I went into, I was able to get things done. But at the same time, like many leaders out there, I've discovered who now talk to me, and through my coaching, who in the cone of silence will tell you they have blood on their shirt. I'm not sleeping well at night.
Yep.
My wife's going to work out on me. People don't like me at work. That's who I was. I was never mean to people, but that's who I was, and I couldn't see it. I had no awareness.
Yeah,
And it
no
was these
self-awareness.
no self, all these blind spots. The other part of that was, when is enough enough?
Wow.
Seriously,
Wow.
you ask a senior leader that, everyone, as a question in coaching. Say, help me understand, when is enough enough, and where are your fingerprints on what's happening right now in your life that you're telling me you don't like your job anymore? It's true, in a coaching session in the Cone of Silence with 12 CEOs, because I ran peer groups. We stopped the meeting as the chair. I stopped it because this one guy came and we do check-ins, and he was a CEO, and he said, I don't know if I want to be a CEO anymore. I just came out of a board meeting, and they said that I'm not doing a good job and I might lose my. And by the way, last night my wife and I had a big fight, and she wants to leave me. So back to the old CEO,
Mhm.
that there's so much pressure on senior leaders, not just CEOs, but senior leaders. And this comes with anything in life. Moms who raise children are under huge pressure at home, that it was about significance. There was no focus on health. There was no focus on life balance. And there certainly wasn't an understanding that, as the Bible has taught me, that's where I learned to be kind and love people. Do unto others, or treat others as if in your neighbor as if you were how you want to be treated, right? I can't tell you the words because my short-term memory failed me there. But my point is that when we lead, are we treating people the way we want them to treat us? Are we treating them with respect? And as a leader, I was driving people to get a good bonus, and then I had arrogant bosses above me who were driving me. And one of my weaknesses is I couldn't set boundaries. And
Mhm.
so I wasn't able to say, hey, stop it. I'm not going to email you on the weekend. I'm not going to fire 40 people because you think it's going to make us more productive. I'm going to tell you why and fight back on that. I was more worried as a young guy unconsciously about losing my job because I was raising a daughter and I had a mortgage to pay and all this. All those things, my self-awareness wasn't there because I hadn't done any work on myself. It was all about ego. So when I said the question, when's enough? The last story, part of the story, is that when I was at Costco, had a buddy of mine who texted me, and he is a CEO, but this guy's like winning awards everywhere, and he's a wonderful person. And I thought he was just reaching out, like sometimes he'll say, you want to go for a drink? And I get this text, and it goes, are you still with the almighty Costco? I said, yeah. He goes, can you pray for me? I think I just had a heart attack.
Wow.
And you know what's really funny? I mean,
Wow.
I was telling my wife Anna the year before, because I remember seeing he got this award as the CEO of the year in this huge area, this huge region of our country. And I kept saying to myself, when is enough enough? When I watch his social media feeds and things, I see he's a very talented man, but he's got so much probably money, or he's got a family, he's got everything there from the outside. That's what it appears to be. I don't think he's happy. And yet he's pushing himself and driving for more and more. So let's wind forward to the CEO I am today. Number one, I work what I want. So I've created
Mhm.
because I own my own company. But if I was working for another company, I'd set boundaries and say, I'm not working on the weekends. I'm not
Yes.
communicating with my employees, which, by the way, in some countries, there's laws against that because, if you're sending emails out at 9 at night, you're expecting your employees, it comes through that way.
Yep.
There's going to be a big focus on my nutrition, on my mental health, and number one above all to me now is my faith. So spending time with God each day, which I never had in my life, and my relationship with my wife and my family being make making that a priority in my life. I say no to everything. So you might laugh, because I said yes to you, but I love you. I say no to I say no to everything, and that's what I think it was Warren Buffett who said, if you want to know the secret of life, learn how to say no to everything. I think it was him. I hope I didn't screw that up. But this is the problem, because when with the old CEO of me, the old ones, we think we have to just everything comes at us. And we have to do. The truth is no. As a leader, you can shift. So I shifted the way I lead to leading through others. I say no to a lot of things, and dramatically, I'm going like, whoa, wait a minute, my life's actually improved. And nobody's getting mad at me. Nobody's saying you're not delivering. My clients aren't leaving me, etc. I've just found what the world really is. That the only 1% or 2% or 3% of people have that lifestyle of with big paychecks and things. That's not most people. The people we lead, the people in the field in our companies, they're like the people I met at Costco on the ground floor.
Mhm.
There are people who work 3 jobs just to survive. There are people who are happy just with what they have. So I learned the values, not the values, but the attributes of gratitude, being grateful for what I have versus what I don't have, and really just living my life differently. Those are, those are just some of the top ones. Mental health is a big part, but you said
Yeah.
check that one in the baggage compartment for now. So just hold it there. Does
Um,
that does that resonate? I know you and I
wow, that
have similar
was
stories.
wow. I hope people listening appreciate everything you just said. I mean, you can just write a book on that, just on that, because this is what is wrong in big corporate settings. It is, we forget the human side to what we do. And we as we go through life, and just like you, I wanted to move up in the corporate world, and I wanted to do this and I wanted to do that. And it was all about, how much can I get? How much, how much can I do? And I was able to, and I think it was by divine intervention, realize when it's enough.
Yeah.
When it's enough. Um, because if we don't know who we are, if we are not happy, how can you lead others?
I want to jump in and add to that's such an awesome thing because it just made me realize this what I was trying to say. You said it better or more articulately that yeah, when we care about ourselves, when we feel fulfilled and happy within, it comes from
Mhm.
within, not from the paycheck, not from the
Mm.
job. You're right. Then I can walk into work every day and I'm a very different person.
Mhm.
And that's what happened. People who knew me back then and who knew me now, everybody now says, "Wow, you know, you're awesome," or "You're this in this way." And I'll tell them stories sometimes about what I used to do in terms of my arrogant leadership, hard driving style, all about me. And they go, "Wow, we just can't imagine you being like that." But it's true. And you live life differently. You love life, and you know what? I think you get healthier and stronger mentally as well.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, it's just I'm getting goosebumps having this conversation with you because it's so relatable. It is so relatable. So I mean, I want for leaders that are listening to us to really have really get a good perspective that there has to be that human side to what we do as leaders. We are responsible for the people that we're leading and the way we lead them and the way we carry ourselves so that we lead with example and that we're not creating leaders such as the old Tom CEO or the old Amin that want everything, everything, everything. And we forget the human side that these are human beings. And when you're able to make that switch, that connection, then man, people will do anything for you.
Yeah. And that part about any people do anything for you back to storytelling when I like you and there's trust and respect, oxytocin's flowing, that makes me feel that way about you.
Mhm.
I'll go to the end of the earth from you. I mean, yeah, I think I told you that this morning you were facilitating another session, and it's quite early for me because of my still recovering from my brain thing. I have fatigue because of my vision, and I remember somebody couldn't make it, somebody who was quite senior in the organization, and I said, do you need me? I'll be there, and I was there. That's about saying no, but also being able to say yes when from the heart it makes you realize you're serving someone other. So in
Mhm.
service to others. Here's an interesting thing. I wanted to share this with you because it came to mind about what you were just saying. Did you know that as leaders, we struggle wondering how we can get more out of people? And what we realize should realize, what I realized, the old Tom to the new Tom, is that it's not about the people. It's about how we maybe have to learn how to get more out of those people. It's about how. So here's a prime example. I'm a Canadian, and there's the hockey league, the National Hockey League, the NHL.
Mhm.
Right? You guys have hockey down there, and no jokes. Okay. Now I played hockey as a young guy, but I was very uncoordinated. I played street hockey, and my first attempt at it as a goalie, and I fell forward on my arms and broke them both. because I was a chunky little kid, and the guy takes a shot. We used to have those sticks, those old Canadian Tire is a big retail store. You would get these wooden sticks, and you would cut the wooden end off, and they would have these fiberglass ends of sticks, like a hockey stick goes. You would literally put it on the end of your stick, screw it on, then you would go to the stove. If your mama wasn't home, you'd turn it on, and the fire was burning on the stove. You would put that fiberglass, and you'd create a hook in the stick. I don't know if you know this, but in hockey they have a device the referees have literally on the ice, and they can pull it out where they can measure the curvature in your stick.
Wow, no, I
It's
didn't know
illegal.
that.
It's illegal to have it curved too much, because when you have a stick that's curved and you shoot a ball, you can literally hook that ball. So if you're a goalie, and I was playing street hockey, my buddy Cliff, called him Rockstar Cliff. He had long hair down to here. I think the only reason he was a friend of mine because I was a geeky smart guy, and he wanted to cheat off my papers. So he said, so we played street hockey, and
Oh man.
his dad had this beautiful house. His dad ran a printing press, and me and Cliff, we play pinball machine in his garage after school and drink dad's pop, which was sugary pop. I'm putting on all this weight like crazy. And then we go in the back, and when it's cold, he would put down a little bit of water on the patio, and it would freeze. It's Canada, but we're not like crazy cold. And we would play, they call it shinny, but just street hockey. So I had these goalie pads on, taped up foam pads and all that. Had a little, he used baseball mask. And he had this stick that was curved, literally like Pinocchio's nose. I guess his nose is straight, right? So I guess if he curved it to point back, and he took a shot, and he went, and it literally curved last minute and went into the corner of the net. So I went like this. You can't see it if you're on the podcast. Okay, the best way to describe it is John Travolta's move on the dance floor, where one hand goes up to the right to the air and one down, and he's spreading his leg. And I go like that, and I miss, the ball goes in the net, and I fall over, and there I am breaking both, broke both my arms. And
Wow.
so, what's the leadership lesson in that? Know your limitations, and don't try to be something that you can't, because I should never be that. Yeah, so basically, the NHL, National Hockey League, and so if you ever watch the playoffs, I mean, have you ever seen any playoffs games in the NHL? Watch it on TV?
Yeah, I've seen it. I mean, one of
Okay,
the most the best sporting events that I've seen live
yeah,
are NHL games or college
okay,
football.
great. So I'm in Vancouver, British Columbia. We have the Rogers Arena, no pitch there, but that's what it's called. And so that's what I was saying. As leaders, we complain, sometimes the upper management, and that's where I live. So I'm talking even maybe why the stress below the management team can be so high, because managers are pushing people to do more and more and more. We're in an era where post COVID, we are having a lot of companies that in 10 years won't be here. They won't be around because things are changing, technology. But we're hearing things like we need to recreate. We need to recreate our future. We need to transform, blah, blah, blah. Just picture employees with signs on their head flashing saying, I'm confused. What does that mean? I always think about, if I'm one of the things I tell some of the people I coach is, if you're talking to your employees and they're in the 20, 30, 40 inch, I want you to pretend, if first of all, I said, do you have a teenage or a university level age child? My daughter's 24.
Yeah, my daughter is third year
Okay.
in college
So if what
now.
I'm saying, if I use, this is one of my don'ts about leadership, don't use jargon. If what you're saying and communicating is so complicated, see what happens is, if I use a term, the brain of my daughter, who's the employee, is going to get stuck, and the brain's going to go somewhere else trying to figure that term out. And all of a sudden, you've forgotten everything the leader's saying. You've
Yes.
forgotten about. So this is the other thing, is no jargon. But going back to the NHL, and your podcast is the NLA, and I was having fun with the NLA and the NHL, a little bit similar, right?
Yep.
But if you watch hockey in the playoffs, every hockey player who's gone to the Stanley Cup will tell you, they will tell you this: the intensity of the game in that part of the year is day and night.
Yep.
And so if you've ever watched a seventh game of a Stanley Cup, and all the games of the seven games, it's remarkable. If you watch hockey generally, it's like, oh my God, they're playing at a level that we never see in the year. It's like almost hard to fathom.
Yes.
And how can you even sustain that? Here's the thing: every human being who is under our leadership has the ability to be resilient and to perform at that level. You can't push it like, okay, Stanley Cup 7 games out of a year. You can't push them to do that every day.
Yeah.
Why aren't they performing at that level? Go and talk to a hockey coach and say, what do you do in the dressing room with that team when they're in the playoffs? Here's what we do. We inspire them. We use positive words, right? We encourage them. We tell them we believe in them. We
Yep.
focus on, in between the first, second period, we focus on the things they did well.
Mm-hmm.
And we also remind them of the things they did well. You guys, you played 80 games this year. You beat out all the teams and you're in the final. All of you, your little band of merry men in this room, have the capability. You did it.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do with our employees? We don't necessarily make them feel. We don't inspire them. But what we forget is, and I go on a tangent sometimes when people say we need A players. Don't give me that, because I was a C+ student in math, yet I was an A in other subjects, yet I became a CEO with not a lot of education like others. You can get more out of your C players and your C pluses in your workforce. So focus on learning how to lead, communicate, inspire, and help them be mentally strong and healthier by running your workplace that way. You'll be amazed how much lift you're going to get out of. So would you rather lead telling stories and getting the most out of your team, where you get 80% of the team contributing, because you're now focusing on the C plusers and the Bs, and maybe there's a D in there somewhere who probably got away with it for a while. Or are you just going to do what they always say? What I've heard them say is, you got to focus on your A players. We got to hire the right people. No, everybody coming in is a human being. And like some of those hockey players that I've interviewed and I've talked to, one of them was somebody they said would never make it to the NHL because he was too short. They almost passed him by, yet he was part of the Miracle on Ice team, the almighty team that beat the Russians. You know that story. Mike Eruzione, go listen to an interview of him sometime. He'll tell you, I was just a kid, and they passed me by, and yet he scored the winning goal that got into the final. Mike is the C+B player. But he can elevate his game if you lead him and you inspire and coach him right. So that brings me back to mental health. But I think that's the key message I'll give to your audience here is you can lead people. Storytelling's a gift. But people will work at a high level of intensity. This is why I'm a big fan of 4-day work week, or you can work hybrid, because screw that. Pardon my language. Beep that out. But are you telling me that I have to sit in an office for 5 days, 9 to 5, so you can watch me and feel good about yourself because you can see me there? The truth is that if you empower people, if you get them a healthier quality of life, if you build trust, you set the goals, they can work hybrid, or you can create technology companies do this, work programs where they say, we want to work 4 days straight and then take 2 days off. You know what? Let's do it. Let's figure it out. And then you watch, like the NHL playoffs, you watch those guys work so hard for 4. They get so much more done than they do sitting usually just in a 7-day work routine. They level up, intensity, boom, the stuff that comes out of the company is incredible. And then they go and play for 3 days and then they come back recharged.
Imagine that. Yeah.
Different paradigm, right? Leading people to their potential is something that's very important.
Oh,
anyway,
man.
Off my soapbox. I do want to get to mental health when at some point.
Well, let's do this. Okay. I want to wrap up, everything we just said, because it's so powerful.